Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And Pete, if you don't know, I do this for every single live. I open up the same way because I do think it's so super cool that no matter where we are in the world or whatever time, nor whatever time it might be in your time zone, we can all come together at the same time and have amazing conversation together. So I want to welcome everyone. Happy Friday to all out there listening. Be sure to drop us a note and let us know in the comments below where you might be listening in from. I am Denise Martha Bachman. We're here with Coffee with Denise, and I'm here in Houston, Texas. So Pete, why don't you just quickly tell us where you're located?
I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a 5-hour drive from Washington, D.C., and a 1-hour flight. And I will be visiting Houston at some point later this year. My brother became, and his wife now, so congratulations to them, became a resident of your city in the recent 6 months.
Awesome. I love that. I'm super excited. We talked about that on our Zoom call that we had not too long ago. So I'm super pumped about meeting you live. And I love Pittsburgh. Now, I will say one of my most favorite cities in the US, and I have maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them. One of them is not Pittsburgh, but Philly.
Oh, geez. Oh.
I love Philly. Well, you know why I love Philly? One, because this Amtrak station. So when I sold for another company, a company called NetIQ at the time, I think, we had one of my clients was Amtrak, and I love going into that Amtrak station. It's so nostalgic. I mean, it looks like something that you see in a movie. So I love it because of the history and the Amtrak station. And then the other is I don't know if it's still there, this old Italian village that they have where you can go and have cannolis. And, you know, it's got like the old rickety wooden carrier or holder where you see the fish in the ice. You know, to me, that's so super cool. So I love Philly, but I also like Pittsburgh. And the train ride, the Amtrak train ride from Pittsburgh or from Philly to Pittsburgh, cool.
I haven't done that train ride before. I really enjoy train rides, and I found that whenever I did, here, let's just dive into it. I went to the other side of the world, left the country for the first time as a 20-year-old to study engineering in Hong Kong. So from the farm to the college in Washington, D.C., sometimes people from Pittsburgh will throw an R in words unnecessarily, so we'd call it Washington, D.C. So down to D.C. and then over to Hong Kong. And as I was there, all my friends from around the globe are, they travel all the time, right? From Europe, it's super simple to get around. So a couple of my buddies are like, let's go to the middle of China. And I'm like, how in the world are we going to get there? They're like, we take a train, 18 hours on a train. And it was remarkable. I absolutely loved it. We actually went to the location where the first Avatar movie was filmed. So if you can think of like those big mountains and everything, super, super cool.
Okay, so well, before I want to dive because there's a lot to unpack there, and I'd love to have a conversation with you if we get to that, if we remember, if it naturally happens. I'd love to come back to why you went across to the other side of the world to study engineering, but we'll come back to that. Right now, what I want to do is just a quick allow Pete to really just do his own introduction. I would probably do a disservice, but I would like to share how we met. So we belong to this amazing community with Corey Warfield. And so if you don't know Corey, go check him out. But Pete and I met in that community. And I just love Pete. Like, I love everything about him. The little bit of time that we spent on the phone together, reading his posts. He's just a wealth of information, but also a kind soul. And, Coffee with Denise is really about sharing some amazing humans. And Pete is amazing. So I want him to do his own introduction. Hopefully that at least sets the stage. Pete, you can take it from here.
Yeah, well, shout out to Corey for bringing us together. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And thanks, Denise, for letting me come on and share some of my experiences over the last couple of years. So for everybody out there, easy to remember, Pittsburgh Pete. I'm a people person from Pittsburgh. So there's passionate about people. So there's like 5 P's that we can throw together. You can't really tell from the Zoom screen here, but I'm 6'8", so I might be one of your tallest guests that you've had on here, Denise. We'll have to see.
100% certain you are my tallest.
I'll expect my trophy in the mail. And what we might even have to do, whenever you were younger, did you ever at your like grandma's house put your height and date on the doorways and stuff.
Yeah.
We'd have to have a virtual doorway where we can actually have everybody check
Have
in.
everyone.
So
Yes, you did play basketball, by the way, because that's always a question that I'm sure you get all the time.
Yeah,
right?
so I actually have this idea of like a little card whenever people come up and like, whoa, you're so tall. Do you like being tall? Did you play basketball? How tall are your parents? What car do you drive? Where did you go to school? All these different things. And the answer is yes, I played basketball to the best of my ability in high school and college. And then I got to play with the pros when I was in Hong Kong.
Wow.
I'm now coaching the game. Absolutely love it. It actually, you know how our life kind of goes through ups and downs. I was in one of those like downs last year, and coaching basketball was one of the things that helped get me going back up. And it's weird how, and we talked about this a little bit before, how whenever you invest in yourself and you take care of, you, then everything else just starts to come into play. And so it's a big kind of aha moment for me of, hey, walk the walk, talk the talk. We talk about this stuff, but you actually got to do it. So basketball is a big piece. My parents are 6'2" and 5'5". So the tallest certificate in the
I'm a little delayed, so sorry, Chella. I just saw your comment. So I was so engrossed in Pete that I just didn't see it. So there you go. Sorry.
So I didn't really know what I wanted to do growing up, but my parents always instilled the values in me that our purpose here is to better the lives of others. Mm-hmm. So, you're taking care of the cows. We had 50 different kinds of fruits and vegetables. Corey and I actually, one of our first conversations was about his garden that was in downtown Chicago. He was growing hops. We had some hops. We had like 50 other things as well. All the animals. I'm like, I don't want to do this farm stuff my entire life. So how can I cultivate the lives of others in various ways? So I went and studied engineering because I figured that would give me an opportunity to go a couple of different ways. It was mechanical engineering. I did that for undergrad, grad school. And then I went to work at a big defense contractor, Lockheed Martin. And I got into a rotational development program. And that's because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So you get to do this role for about 6 months, this role for 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. And then you figure out what's the best fit. And you kind of have built a little bit of a network. And then you keep moving forward from there. After a few years, I said to myself, man, what is it that's inside my heart? What do I love doing? What does the world need? What could I potentially get paid for? But how do we leave this world a better place? Going back to that piece of what mom and dad said to do, because Denise, I don't know about you, but pissing off your parents is not something that's on my priority list at all. So I keep true to that. And so I had this idea of how do we connect people in the workplace? Yeah. And this was back in March 4th, 2018. So we're going back six years and some change. And I said, you know what? There's not really a great solution out there. We can send messages to each other. There's 1.5 million share points. LinkedIn was still on the rise. I don't think my first post on LinkedIn was until within 6 months of there. So I didn't really use the tool. And so then the first year, 2018, I said, okay, let's just figure out how to manually connect these people. We built the first MVP the year after, and I left Lockheed, went to a smaller defense contractor, built robots for the Army. And then in the middle of COVID, I said, I'm going all in on this startup dream. And it's been a heck of a journey. We can dive into it a little bit more. So was in DC for a decade, moved all around the country, around the world twice, but back in the Pittsburgh area today.
I love that story. So that's been a really interesting evolution from where you started to where you are. I love that Pete uses the word cultivate, because I talk about cultivating all the time, and that we not only need to cultivate, but also elevate the human aspect of all that we do. And so talking about purpose and just moving from farming to engineering and going to Hong Kong, and then coming back, though you've had some amazing opportunities and experiences, but then you come back to what your purpose is, which is really focusing on connecting people, which I think is amazing. It speaks so loudly to something that I think we need to spend more time focusing on, which is the human connection.
100%. And it's one of those things that can catalyze those aha moments for people. Mm-hmm. So you think, when are you most malleable? Coming out of high school, coming out of college, in those early career phases, and whatever the job is that you have or the role is that you have. But then how do we make sure that we continue developing and cultivating and nurturing and revitalizing those relationships as we keep progressing? It's easy to forget about some of those things. It's easy to say, "Nah, I'm good. I'm set. My career's taken off." But what happens? Think about it from a research and development perspective at a company, right? Say Procter and Gamble. If they stop doing research and development and they stop kind of investing in their future, what happens to their competitive edge? Same thing. So connections and investing in our people and investing in ourselves, it's kind of like that own research and development. So by continuing to feed that funnel and fuel that fire a little bit every single time, every single week, right? Doesn't have to be every day specifically, but that's where we keep that competitive edge. Just, even me and you, whenever we started jamming, we're like, oh my gosh, this idea, this idea, this idea,
Yep.
right? Go talk to this person. So catalyzing those aha moments is really what this is all about. It can result in the outcomes can be, new relationships, new skills to develop. And that's really what I talk about in my book that got published last year, is kind of what to do with those different individuals that you kind of talk with. And I'm engineer, right? So I make it super simple. We talk about career maps and we talk about a personal board of advisors. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to tell you what I told you. And that's what the company's all about. So check out Pathfinders. We can put the link in the chat here as well. But it's really about how do we give people the tools to be able to fish for themselves and succeed and excel from day one.
Yeah, so a lot there, because when I talk about cultivating an innovative culture, that speaks exactly to cultivating an innovative culture. Because the problem that I see in a lot of organizations where you have leaders and teams, you have these leaders who become, well, the better leaders are not this way, but those leaders that could use a bit of leadership themselves or a bit of coaching are those that tend to micromanage. And really, when we foster these relationships with our team members and allow them to be themselves and to be creative and to kind of work a bit autonomously, they have the creativity and flexibility and ability to innovate, which is what we need in this day and age in order to I mean, we've always needed to innovate as companies, but now we have to do it even more so because you have so many companies popping up and you've got so many competitors in the space. And if you're not innovating, your competitor is, and you'll be left in the dust, if even alive, as an organization in, a few years.
And what you said there is empowering the people, right? So make sure you give them the right onboarding, integration, assimilation process, right? So what are you doing during the first, 1, 3, 6, 12 months, right? Think about that onboarding experience from a 12-month perspective, any of those leaders that are out there. And then say, hey, here's where we need to get to, here's where we are. And you might have some ideas of how to accomplish A and B and C. Make sure they have the right resources, the right support network. Make sure they have the time and the know-how, and that the goals and expectations are clear, because so many times we can be micromanaged and that stinks. Mm-hmm. So many times we can be unmanaged and that also stinks. So it's a fine line. And as we're getting more and more of these, millennial leaders that are being forced up into, higher positions because there's just not as many people to fill the jobs. It's like, man, how do I do some of this? So I think what you do and the tidbits that you're sharing are huge on how people can say, hey, I got some more tools in my toolbox. I'm ready to rock and roll. I can do this thing. We got this.
Well, I think it also speaks to, when you talk about we can do this, you got this, it speaks, and we correlate that to an innovative culture and differentiating from our competitors. I mean, Corey just said, hey, we together are compounding value, love that. But, Corey is an AI expert. And one of the things we are seeing is a tremendous amount of noise and chaos and just uncertainty, but as well excitement centered around AI. And our differentiator today is going to be how we adopt and adapt to these AI technologies. And one of the things that we have to do is to upskill as individuals, whether it is within an organization or personally as ourselves. And you fostering, this message and teaching organizations how to do this more effectively, and individuals, will enable them to potentially look at the value of upskilling today so that they are still relevant 5 years down the road.
I look at it as a triangle. I like triangles, right? Upskill, new skill, reskill. So we always have to be thinking about what else is out there. Something that Corey's talked about with me many times is, what are the new skills that we're going to need, right? So people are like, okay, AI, beginner, I'm an intermediate, I'm an expert. Prompt engineering is something that is here, and it's going to be here for quite a while. The better the inputs to the AI, the better the outputs. Trash in, trash out. Decent stuff in. Sometimes it can get a little bit better. But prompt engineering is one of those things that I'm not going to say it's another language, but it's another skill. So thinking about how can we refresh and add other skills to our toolboxes. Some of the concepts in the book, Denise, are around what do we talk about with those multiple mentors, right? I think you'll be proud of me for
I was going to ask you about the personal advisors. Is that what you're relating to personal mentors? Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So, not bad for an engineer. I changed my business card to be a bookmark.
I love
so the
that.
personal board on the back shows the multiple different mentors. We talk about diversity of our workforce, but what about diversity of thought and insight and perspective whenever it comes to professional development and growth? So if I'm just learning from you, or I'm just learning from Corey, that could be really helpful, and it could be good, right? But you only have so many lived experiences. But what if I go to you, I go to David, I go to Sean, I go to Jeffrey, I go to Corey, I go to Raki, right? These different people who understand what I'm trying to accomplish. And whenever I'm able to visualize, right, hey, here's my career map, where I've been, where I'm at, where I want to go, looking at it from 5 dimensions, my jobs, my skills, my accomplishments, you're able to say, hey, I see where you want to go. I understand what your purpose is and your why is. And by sharing some of those pieces with you, now you're like, okay, this mentorship thing's important. We're going to diversify with a couple of mentors to optimize it. And I'm going to have a kind of a guide of what to show with you. And that's what our technology provides. So the book is a starting point. And if anybody gets excited about that career companion concept of, hey, what do I do? Who do I talk to? Let's chat about it a little bit more, because it's usually on like some people's to-do list and leaders' to-do list. But now let's take it from to-do to done.
Yeah, to actually execute. I think that's where we see the biggest challenges conceptually, which is what I was it's a great segue for this, for you to maybe better explain. So conceptually, this sounds all really cool, right? If I think in my head, I've got some people that I could designate as mentors. I have coaches. I have people that I potentially think about in terms of mentorship, but I don't know that I have them written down. I don't know that I actively, effectively utilize them in that way. So I guess let's take it out of conception, and how do we practically potentially put this into practice? What are some recommendations that you might give us so that we can today, after we get off this live, that we can do something that affects us positively going forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat here. Here's one for people to be able to see the book, and that's let's see here. I think I'll put it in the private chat there.
Awesome, and then I'll just
got that one.
Yep, I got it.
And so that talks about, that's one of the tools you can put in your toolbox. So learn about some of these pieces that are possible. In the book, we talk about there's 3 parts to it. It talks about your why, putting together the preparation going into the conversations with these different people. And then Denise, we talk about the 10 different board seats that you can fill. From a buddy, right, which is an informal within 1 to 3 years of your experience, to your functional mentor, somebody within 5 to 10 years of you that's been in your shoes before, maybe has worked for your boss before. You're aligned to them professionally, kind of mentally, maybe even spiritually as well. cross-functional mentor. So I was an engineer, and so I had a cross-functional mentor that was in legal, one in comms, right? So they have, still 5 to 10 years of experience more, but they've walked a different path. My champion, that's the person that's split level, right? 2 levels above me. My sponsor, who's that super connector for you, giving of their brand, not just of their time, like the mentors do.
Wow.
So you're seeing, you probably, as I'm talking through this and people listening in now or later, you're probably like, oh, I got that person. And so they're able to provide different insight, guidance, perspectives, and experiences along the way. And it's just kind of like if you look at the front cover of the book, right? It's a path. And sure, can you get from point A to point B without any of these guides? Like you're walking through a forest, you're walking on a hike. Sure, you can. But wouldn't it be nice if we could save some time along the way? Hey, Denise, turn left here. Hey, Denise, don't take that job. Hey, Denise, maybe add these other skills. And that's going to be super helpful whenever we get up to this, position or this opportunity 3 steps away. So they can help us kind of springboard, a little bit faster. And it's almost like having the answers to the test before we walk into the testing room.
So a few things. So when I think of in terms of practicality, right? Not everyone's a pen and paper kind of gal. I am, right? I'm constantly always writing things down. You don't necessarily have to. I love that. I mean, anyone who still uses pen and paper to me is cool. Although I'm old, right? But nonetheless, I still think it's cool. But, if we talk about practicality, it's one thing to think it in our head, and it's another to either put it down on paper with a pen or to, type it into an electronic journal. It doesn't really matter, but actually physically taking the effort to write it or type it out, I think then brings it much more to life. And as a coach, that's one of the things I talk about is, having it in your head isn't enough. It's having it in your head still is in the conceptual phase. It's when you're still thinking about it, you may reference it, but until you actually put it down on, we'll just say pen and paper, loosely, it may just be that you're typing it on your keypad to your laptop or using your iPad. It doesn't really matter. But let's just say so that we don't have to describe all of those instances, pen and paper. When you write it actually physically down, then it's like, now I can actually do something with it. Now I can execute. Now I can truly recognize that here's my list of people to go to. When, I don't know if you know, but Corey and myself and another guy, and then Chella and myself and another guy we're in these partnerships. And so I have been mentally thinking, okay, who can we bring into our partnership as, someone that we can reference to when it's something we can't offer? How can we be a one-stop shop leveraging our partner program? Conceptually, I've got all these names, but until I write it down on a piece of paper, I don't have an actual strategy that I can put into place. I can think about it, but I can't put it in. I can't do anything. I can't execute on it until it's in paper.
So one of the meetings I had yesterday, we actually did just that, looking at the partnership ecosystem, because I liken this, Denise, to going to the mechanic, right? My car's not working. It's making a weird sound. I take it into the shop, and he or she is going to tell me, hey, you got to work on your tires. The computer system's busted. Your windows aren't working, and that individual might not be an expert on every single one of those things, and the team in that shop might not be an expert on every single one of those things, but has the network of who to call and how to. Because I just want the mechanic to tell me, hey, you got to do this. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So whenever we're able to go in and work with these different clients and prospects and organizations and partners, and say, hey, talk to me about what's going on, right? We're going to help solve your problems. That's where it gets to be the most fun. Let me go back to the piece that you just shared. I'm engineer, right? So
we got a lot we could unpack, right? There's so many different.
There is. Let me finish this one. So we think it first, right? And that's whenever this idea is just a little seed. And then whenever we visualize it, right, put it down on paper, put it into the Latitude Career Companion app, then you're like, okay, now it's starting to grow a little bit. Number 3 is we're going to share it, right? So now it's becoming a little bit more real.
Yes, now we've got accountability, right?
Number 4 is that follow-up and the accountability.
Okay.
Because what happens, remember we said that word cultivate early on in this conversation? Yep. What happens if we plant those seeds and stuff, and then we go on vacation for 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks? We don't water it. We don't pluck those little weeds out of the garden. We don't give it the sunshine that it needs. We don't take care of it. Maybe it needs a transplant, right? This is some bad soil. We need to move it over somewhere else. And then how do we iterate and learn and grow and develop? So that's, I said I like three pieces, but that one's five. So think it, visualize it, share it, follow up with accountability, iterate, learn, and grow.
Well, Chella just likes Chella, who's on here, right? She said cultivate and elevate, right?
Yeah.
She is an odd person, and I don't mean odd as in weird. I mean,
congratulations, Chella. Let's go. What a compliment on a Friday morning.
That just made me snort. So I mean, in terms of either 3 or 5. So 5 is good. Where I was going with that is, I know you like 3s, but 5 is good. It's still an odd number.
I love it. So those are really the pieces of what to think about. And just like you said, is once we can put it on paper, then it can turn from that to-do list to begin to get to done. And I think that's one of the really cool things that Corey's taught us about the power of LinkedIn is you're able to reach so many more perspective and potential board members. So I kind of ask a question back to you, Denise, and say, who are some of the people that have guided you on your professional journey? Now that we're talking about this concept of, multiple mentors, and it's kind of cool whenever we're able to just give them a shout out and say, hey, thank you for this at this time.
I've had some amazing ones. I mean, Corey's one of them, obviously. Chella has been amazing. She's my accountability partner. But although we have different experiences, we are at the same stage. So we don't actually map to, and maybe this is something we can have a conversation briefly about. She isn't like 5 years ahead of me or 5 years, neither am I 5 years ahead of her. I think as it relates to our entrepreneurial journey, we're kind of in the same place. We've had different experiences, so we bring different things to the board, but we're not in that 5 steps ahead like you mentioned. So I guess, do they all have to fit into those requirements?
So they don't. And what I'm going to try and find in here, I have a copy of the book, is a picture that I took while I was running around Hong Kong, literally running around, not being funny about that. But it was along the promenade. And as I start talking about these 8, 9, 10 different board seats that you can fill, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, that's a lot. I'm not sure what's actually possible here. So this is a statue of Bruce Lee. Let me see where I can find Bruce in here. And there's the reason it's in there is because there's a quote that Bruce Lee has. And it says, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. So okay. I'm just giving you a little bit of a guideline and a couple of things to think about along the way. The accountability partner, somebody actually said accountability buddy. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. I love coming up with new words. That individual can be within, right, 3 to 10 years. There's a matrix at the end of the book where it talks about kind of the details of each individual, but it's within, right? So maybe it's ahead, maybe it's below, but it's not one size fits all. And it's with experience, so not necessarily age, because there's one of our, partners and a mentor to me is, about a year younger than me. And it's kind of, odd to think about, but it's like, hey, I don't really care. Age is just a number. If you're going to add value, we're going to have fun, we get along together, then let's go ahead and do it. The most important thing is that you have a good fit and you agree on those goals and expectations. What is it that we're going to accomplish together, and that we're doing it for the right reasons? I think that's something else that we've, learned from LinkedIn. We can get so caught up in doing it for the wrong reasons or following somebody else's goals and their metrics. So you probably heard about SMART goals. I talk about SMARTY goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, and yours. Make sure the goals are about you, because if I'm just trying to follow somebody else's path, that might not be the right one for me. And that's where these diverse perspectives, the multiple board members are able to say, whoa, hold up. Denise, you told me before that you wanted to go straight, but you're starting to go left. Well, yes, because so-and-so went left. It's like, are you so-and-so at the end of the day? Just think about it. If you do this, right? And that's where the best guides are able to help kind of prod us and help us think outside of what we might usually do if it was just us talking to ourselves.
Well, someone else I do want to recognize, Peter Ainley, who's on here, because he and I are in a group together, but we've also started to establish a partnership, and he's been one of my go-tos. I'm going to actually try to put a list in the comments below of all of those that I would consider part of my board, or at least have positively impacted me. But I think it's something that's important to share is when Corey and I first started working together, and I've known Corey for a bit of time, and then I got to meet him live. So we'd connected a few years back or a couple of years back, and we'd engaged in one another's content for a while. And then we both kind of just somehow, the LinkedIn algorithm took us in different paths, right? And then we came back together closer at the beginning of the year. And, when we first had one of our first conversations around LinkedIn, he said, I said, hey, I think I'm doing a really good job. I got this LinkedIn top voice badge. So I know I'm doing something right. I just don't know what. And he said, well, Denise, what I see you doing is a lot of LinkedIn, but with no strategy. So I was out there actually taking action and executing and doing the work, but I didn't have really a strategy centered around it. And I think what I'm hearing you in kind of trying to summarize all the things we've been talking about right now is that it's until you can actually, it's great to have all these irons in the pot, these different people that you can potentially work with. And are you hearing that weird in a sound as well? It's been in and out. Have you heard it, or is it just me? Okay. Okay, good. So I'm glad no one else.
As long as it's not voices inside your head, I think we're okay.
It might actually be, because it's kind of scary here for a minute. But I guess where I'm going with that is having all these great things potentially in place, conceptually in place, maybe executing on some, until you actually put a strategy around it, you are probably not doing as good as you could potentially do, is I guess where I'm headed with that thought.
Yeah, I think that's, you have to have a plan, right? And I liken this to going on a trip or a vacation or an adventure. What do you do before? I'm going to Italy in a couple of months for my brother's wedding. What do you do before you go on a trip? You plan a little bit. Everybody, at least, you have a suitcase that you pack. Maybe you have a couple of spots that you want to go to, maybe some restaurants you want to try, and then you have the tools. Do I need to take a camera, a passport, a suitcase, some other clothes, right? So there's a little bit of a plan, there's a little bit of the people, there's a little bit of the tools. The same thing goes for whatever we're trying to accomplish. I have a plan, I have a strategy, right? Who am I going to, engage with and interact with and get feedback along the way for optimal, right? Optimal results and positive outcomes. And then what are the tools that I'm going to need? And that's where, leveraging some of your expertise, putting those tools in my toolbox, leveraging something like Latitude to actually visualize where I've been, where I'm at, where I want to go. And those nudges and reminders of, hey, it's time to hit up, the cross-functional mentor again. You haven't talked for the last 2.5 months. And you told us that you wanted to engage on a every other month basis, right? How do you optimize usage of this tool, LinkedIn, as you're going on this adventure? But if we step back from all that, we have to think about, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Are we still headed towards that right direction? Because it's so easy to veer off along that journey. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So what's important now can change, but as long as we have an idea of what that is, that's what matters most.
Yeah. And I would say too, when you look at what Pete does and the book that he has, and oh, by the way, Chella did mention she is hearing those noises first. So for anyone else who can hear it, I do apologize. I'm not really quite sure what it is. It's just odd. It almost sounds like another conversation happening, but there's nothing going. If I look at my tabs, there's nothing. So I don't really know what it is. So I apologize for anyone who can hear that. That being said, though, if you look at like Pete's profile and you look at the Pathfinder book, it does seem as though it could be targeted for those in the corporate world and an employee versus a set of leaders. But I also think that this could also be used for us as individuals, so on our own personal journey, as well as on top of that, our entrepreneur journey or solopreneur, right? I just had a conversation with someone who, it's not that we argued or bantered, but there was a misalignment in entrepreneur versus solopreneur. I was lumping them all into entrepreneur, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever your role is, I think where I could see this is really benefiting all individuals, regardless of whether you're in the corporate space or off on your own.
Yeah, and remember the personal board concept is the multiple people. So whenever you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, you probably have a couple of advisors that are guiding you. And so that's from the professional side. Who's and what you see have the advisors that are guiding the CEO. The CEO guides the business. The advisors don't typically get involved in the day-to-day business. Same thing with this personal board concept, right? They're gonna, guide you, but you're going to guide your daily business, your daily work that you're doing, right? And then whenever we think about the what do we talk about with them from that career map perspective, looking at it from not just those different jobs, because if we're leading our own business, that title might not change. But what are we doing from a volunteer perspective? What are we doing to keep doing on the fun stuff side? What are we doing to sharpen the saw and add more skills? What are we doing from achievements and accomplishments? So that's where we think about the career map from not just the different jobs that I've had, but looking at it from multiple dimensions, because growth is all around us. And whenever we're able to say, hey, here's kind of what I want to achieve. I want to double business this year. I want to add 5 new team members. I want to bring on 17 new clients, right? Those different things. Okay, how do I make that happen? Peel back the onion. And that's where whenever we can visualize it, then it's more easier for other people to help us turn those plans into reality. And then going back to your accountability buddy, it's like, hey, what are we doing to make this happen? Is this still at the top of your list? If you're a fan of EOS, then talk about your big rocks, right? What are those different pieces?
I love that. I actually can see how I could take this to my 14-year-old daughter and have her create her own personal board. Because, while I think I'm an amazing mom, I know she's probably not always going to listen to mom. So who are the other people that she can turn to have conversations should she need them, so that she can continue to grow and become that healthy adult that I wish I would have been at her age, or as I embarked on my, in my early 20s, right? I'd love for her, I found that piece and how to build that out now as an adult, but it's taken me, till I was 50 to figure all that out. I'd rather her figure that out sooner. So I could see this even being something that you could implement or instill and teach in your children as well.
I'll be speaking to a high school group on Monday and Wednesday next week. And I've spoken to about a half dozen colleges in the last month and a half. So it's something that if you're pre-career, early career, mid-career, late career, post-career, can benefit from the concepts and methodology in here. And one of the things you just said, Denise, is proactively take a look at this, right? Use it before you need it. Plan this out, piece this out before you need it. Because think about what happens. Hey, a lot of people are getting laid off with the tumultuous times in the professional setting. Am I going to, go? And one of my buddies, his last day of work was on Wednesday. So we caught up with him. He's like, hey, I got this business plan. I got these ideas together. We sort of noodled on the concept before. He said, I'm all in. Thursday's my first day. Yesterday was his first day without a boss. I said, hey, welcome to this world of exhilaration. There's highs, there's lows, and remember what's in here. And remember that it's not just you going on this journey. So developing the plan, the strategy, the multiple paths, option A, option B, option C, and those couple of people, form those relationships, have them understand who you are, what you're all about, before there's those, I call them the oh shit moments. I don't think we're allowed to swear on here, but everybody can resonate with what that is. And you're like, okay, so how do we get ready? And, kind of, it's a proactive approach to what's coming in the future, which is change and unknown. And that's the only thing that's for certain.
That's the one thing we can always count on is change. And it's only going to change at even a more rapid pace with the way that we're introducing and developing all of these new technologies. So it is we've always been in change. I mean, if you reflect back at even when I first graduated from college, and I mean, that was the first time I ever had a cell phone, right? I mean, that's when cell phones were available. Look, now fast forward and, look at where we are with cell phones, but the pace at which we are evolving and changing is at such a faster pace because of the leverage of technology that we have available to us. So I guess we uncovered a lot. We talked about your book, the Pathfinder's book. We talked about the fact that I could actually see you taking and creating a program specific to the younger generation. Like I could see this evolving into something even greater and grander, because I think there are so many of the young people who are starting to figure out, or really trying to figure out, how they are going to make it in this world. Because again, it's ever evolving and changing. Heck, who knows whether or not we're even going to need college in 4 years from now, right? I mean, or
No,
even what is available to study. I mean, is what we studied before even going to be available?
I have a stack of like 50 notebooks over here of the entire entrepreneurial journey, and one of the pieces along the way was just that of, do we really need college? For some things, yes, we definitely do. For some things, there's on the job training, and there's experiences, relationships, and things that we can do that you might not necessarily need the degree. Now, does it teach you good time management and good prioritization skills? And are you building relationships with different people? Yes, very, very much so. And I think those are important skills to develop. And it's kind of being away on your own. A lot of people will go to, a college. So I'm not saying that it's not necessary, but I'm saying that it is okay to think about, hey, what matters most for me? And what kind of a learner are you? So as long as you can put yourself into some kind of a setting to meet new people, to challenge yourself, to build new skills, to figure out, kind of how you operate best, I think that can work out really well. Exciting news that a couple of colleges and universities are working to roll the Pathfinders methodology into their curriculum. So super, super exciting. Anybody that's listening, I love talking to high school students, college students. If you have links to or ties to high schools and colleges, happy to chat with them, because this is the kind of stuff that, career services, this makes them look really good. So how can we help those college guidance counselors, those career services offices? Because let's face it, Denise, why are we going to college? It's typically to get a job, right? On the other side of it. So why don't we use the necessary tools in our toolboxes? I'd also say that I've done more than 70 keynotes and workshops and presentations. Most times those are to organizations. So if companies, want to say, hey, how do we do this for our people? That's a lot of fun. And that's kind of a nice precursor of talking about the why this is important and planting those seeds for companies. So then, okay, now we get it. How do we do this? That's where the tech from Latitude comes in. It's like, hey, I got you covered. And a little bit of a backstory, the company was started because I realized I didn't have enough time to help everybody, and I didn't know all the answers. So with the power of technology, and as AI continues to flourish, grow, and develop, we're able to do a whole lot more, reach way further, and impact so many lives in a great way. But the last piece I'll say on that is, it is a tool. And just like a hammer can be used to, pound in nails and build up a house, can also be used to break a window or be a paperweight. So it
Yep.
just depends on how we utilize that tool.
Well, and we didn't even really spend a whole lot of time talking about the app in particular. I do think that that is something that if you have an opportunity, I'd love to have you back at some point so we can talk about this a bit more. And I also want to try to connect you with my daughter's high school, or at least the school district, because I do believe that there's some opportunity there. I think it's really important that we do the best that we can to lead the younger generation in the right path, whatever that path may be. It doesn't have to be the one we teach them, but leveraging tools and practices like what you offer so that they can find their own path, I think is so key. Important. So I want to be cognitive of everyone's time. So we're running short on time. We have really had some great conversation. I've had a lot of fun with this, Pete. I want everyone to know how best to find you first. So there is the link here where you can find his book. And so it's in the comments below. If you also look, here is the ticker for his LinkedIn handle. Pete, where else can we find you?
LinkedIn's the best place to find me. I'll put the link in here again, so people are able to say like, oh yeah, there he is. Please, reach out, connect, say hello. There it is. And it's just at Pete Schramm. And a real easy way. This is kind of fun and a challenge for everybody. You can pronounce my name with 2 emojis. I don't think we can put it in the chat here, but with a peach emoji and a ram emoji. Pete Schramm.
Oh,
So
I love
challenge
that.
out there, and to see if any other of your guests, Denise, are able to say their name with 1 or 2 or 3. They could even use 4 if they want to, multiple emojis. So just tossing that out there. And anybody else that's listening, have a go at it and see how you can continue to be creative. If you want to please check out the book. GoLatitude.com is the website, but I like to keep it super simple. Reach out on LinkedIn, very, very focused, makes it easy to understand and follow up. I just want to say thanks again for this opportunity to chat, and good luck to everybody. And please, share your story about your career journey and how your personal board has kind of helped influence you. And cool news, Denise, this summer we'll be kicking off our own 10 to 15-minute podcast of just sharing people's career journeys. So real short and sweet, and just building up the lives of others so that they can do just what you talked about earlier, showing the people ahead of them what's possible. I went from here to here to here to here to here. So
awesome. And I want to recognize that Sia is here out there with us. These emojis suck. So she took on the challenge and how to write with emojis. All right. So again, I want to thank everyone who's joining us. If you're on Team Replay, be sure to let us know. For those of us that have been here on Team Live, we appreciate you, even if you were late. But we
got here right when they arrived, Denise. Don't
exactly. You are always on time. So whenever you get to where you are, you're always on time. And we thank everyone for being here. Everyone, I think, knows these are usually on Fridays at 10 a.m. Central Time, which is Houston, Texas. Pete joined us all the way from Pittsburgh, so we're super excited to have had him here. I'm honored that you took the time to join us. We've unpacked a lot. We could have had a whole nother conversation, a whole nother hour on here. So hopefully we'll have him back at some point. But I want to thank everyone again. Happy Friday to everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and wishing everyone the best. Thank you all.